What's up, nerds? Sorry for the delays. Chaos as always. Lots going on. Felt like it was best to just go live and do this all here with y'all because I want to have videos for the things that dropped today, specifically Cloudflare buys Astro and the $8 OpenAI plan, but also my co-work video is overdue and I really should do that. It is not my cat's birthday. I was just posting because it's been because people are posting things they did in 2016 because it's been 10 years. Cat's birthday is in March. But yes, they're turning 10, which is insane. Yeah, everything always happens right after I'm streaming. I've not had a chance to get to most of the emails, sadly. I will hopefully do that, but I've had literally zero time. New ASAP Rocky out. I haven't even checked what dropped. Let me open title. Let's see what I've missed for drops. Where'd they move the new album section? Where is my new albums section? It's the thing I'm on here for. It's my favorite part of title. Okay, there's recommended new tracks, but where's recommended new albums? Here it is. They moved it down a ton. And they need to stop fucking changing around the homepage. Yep, the new A$AP Rocky album finally. Very excited for that. Is this actually Skrillex? Yeah, well, with White Armor. That'll be fun to listen to later. Sean Hopkins did a soundtrack for a movie. And nothing else I'm excited about. Cool. That'll be enough to listen to post-stream. $8 is very specific. We have plenty to say about that. Open work by Langchain, no. Interesting. I will include this in my co-work bid for sure. Ben's doing a raycast extension for pick thing. Yeah, I have not used it yet. Interesting. This will be fun to read later. I need to make sure audio's working because I was having issues. Yay, it is. Look at that. Cool. Had to confirm that quick. Get everything else going. Okay. Some things here. Drop links for all this. And this. And check my bookmarks quick because I have something in there I want. I think it's there. No, 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 nope, nope. Oh god, did I forget to bookmark this? I may have. You know what I'll do instead?
Apple has ever.
Nope, not that. I know there's a lot
CEO of one of the
sources here that I would like. Yeah, the Gen AI traffic is the specific one. I thought I had this bookmarked. Yoink. Yoink. Grab that. Want the Sama post. Cool. Everything I want for that one. Put this in primary. I did want to do a different video on the state of the job market. I'll put that in here. Are juniors screwed? This I just thought of when I was watching that AI Explained video. There was a really cool study here that I want to break down at some point, so I'm grabbing that before I forget about it. Anything else in here I wanted to steal? Oh yeah, for the Claude co-work, the all of it quote is good. Yoink. Anything else in here I wanted to snag? I think most of this is fine. Yeah, this video is really good. I don't know if you guys know this. I love AI Explained. Gets me inspired. Like, one of his videos gives me ideas for like 6. Cool. What have I missed while I was doing all of that? Neither name.com nor name.org have any aura, in my opinion. Sources from Maria. What do you have for me? Light model, not going to be useful for what we're talking about today. Cloudflare stuff. This is very useful. Cloudflare buys Astro. Yoink. Yoink. That's the same one, I think. Cool. Yeah, Chrome and vertical tabs I am aware of. Chrome beta. I was playing with it earlier. It's in the thumbnail on YouTube. Very excited to see this happening, and more importantly, excited for it to make its way into Helium. Yeah, split tabs aren't even that useful. Yeah, JXL as well. They're finally fixing Chrome. Chrome finally listens. Vertical tabs. JPEG XL. Fighting to avoid these things is no longer worth it. Me. Cool. I should have Chromium's vibe coded now. Well, JPEG XL sources. Thank you for that. Grab that. Grab. Why did I close the? Yeah, I did. Grab this one. Cool. I think I have everything I need for the things I want to film today. Cool. Yeah, I was trying to catch up because we were very far behind on content. Like, if you look at the calendar, we only have 2 videos in the backlog, so I would have had to stream Sunday anyways. I do still plan on streaming Sunday, but now we have a bunch of new shit happening, so I can bump all of these back a bit because we're going to have breaking news videos to do instead. I would say in order of like when we need these out, we probably should get the Claude Cowork video out already. It should have been out. I'd say like this one out tonight, this one out early mid tomorrow, this one some point Sunday, and then I can film everything else then. So today I want to make sure we film all of these. I cannot possibly test things or do things that aren't directly related to this. Oh, I love the JPEG XL art exhibit. I post about this all the time. I'll stick that in here. Fun tangents. Cool. Label, mid. Cool. The thinking machine stuff's interesting, but I don't like have anything to say unless I have more info on it. I don't have more info on it. So sorry, YouTube, for the neglect. Been trying to run everything. What do you have for me, Maria? JBXL for more info on that. Cool. I will drop that in there as well. Cool. I'm not super happy with my calendar. I liked Cron quite a bit, then they got acquired by Notion, and it feels like it's been slowly rotting since then. I'm down to change my calendar at basically any point. I just want it to be decent, and right now my calendar is at best decent. I think all the subs that happened when I was getting ready. We got David CA6 with the 14 months of Prime. Actually, right, tier 1 sub, thank you for that. G Sporto hitting 10 months, 33 total, legend. Canada Honk, good to see you. Hope all is well. 9 months in now. And then Darth Minimal, the legend, continuing the gift from NMG. Work this and watch later. What do you have for me? Oh, I'll put it in my watch later, but the likelihood I can actually get to it's not necessarily high. I have way too much shit. I haven't gotten access to Disco yet, so I can't use it yet. I should include that in here. Maybe talk about Disco. Cool. In the notes now. Good context. I will add that in. Still pushing back on JXL before. Cool. Added that in. How do I change the scene? I think really hard. Foot pedals. Thank you, Knock, for the 6 months of tier 1. Appreciate you a ton. Think I have everything we need here. Feeling pretty good. No file system right now? Absolutely not today. No, I'm on limited time. I don't want to be live for too long, so I want to hang with some people tonight because I'm finally healthy enough that I don't feel like I'll get people sick. So, yeah, that's the plan. And I've been in calls and shit all day up until now. When they decided to add JXL, I can grab that. Google Caves or JXL in November. Grab that. Cool. I think we have everything. Cool. Let's start with the OpenAI $8 plan. This is the most recent thing, and I have a lot of thoughts. Cool. Let me start recording quick, and then we can get going. Slash marker offset 25 45. We are going. There's a video I am in. Oh boy. Fun because they took our thumbnail a little bit I'm not upset by it. I'm amused by it. Oh God, Ben's title for the Ralph video is actually dope. Programming is dead and this man killed it. That's 11 out of 10, Ben. If you're not here, I'll compliment you on that again later. He's learning. My watch later, I've had to wipe it 3 times because I keep getting over 5,000 videos and then it breaks. It's always long enough that it breaks the player on mobile when I try to add things to the queue. Right now, it's around 4,600, I think, so I'm going to have to wipe it again soon. I got it down to under 1,000 recently, and then after a few months, actually probably been about 6 months or so, it is back up there. My biggest issue is like, it's full of things like music and deep dives on random shit and sources people drop here. I have so many little things I would change about Watch Later. Like I've considered the whole like get the job at the company, change the thing that's annoying you and leave. I could, you know what? I'm going to make another section here. Other products. Unfucking Watch Later on YouTube. Okay, thing 1, adding a video already in WL should move it to the front or the top. The fact that it does not do that is obnoxious. I regularly unadd a video, then re-add it, and sometimes it lags, and then I lose the video and it's gone forever. That's happened way too many times. Filter for music, both in and out. So if I want to listen to the music in my watch later, I can filter for just the music, and I can filter out the music when I want to listen to things that I can listen to at 1.5x. Export from. WL and likes are the only playlists you cannot export from. Fucking stupid. Fix it. Cool. Just wanted to write those down in case I ever have enough clout with the Google guys to get things actually fixed. Yeah, the fact that the slide deletes broken is obnoxious. iOS specific. Long WL breaks Q. Sliding to remove from WL sucks and breaks often. Yeah, I could go on forever. I'm not going to even ask for the greater than 5,000 limit thing. Yeah, I don't really... I saw your message earlier, Nak. My productivity stack is less products, more people. There isn't much to learn other than like when you have money, you should spend it on people to make you more productive. And when you notice things that take more time than they should, you should fix them. Like that's really my productivity stack. None of it's like these 3 programs make me so much more efficient. It's more so similar to my content stack. I have a problem, I fix the problem. Sometimes I need to bring in a new product. Sometimes I need to build something. Sometimes I need to change something. Sometimes I need to hire someone. But like every time there is a thing that feels like it is taking longer than it should, I try to take a step back, analyze it, and figure out what the solution is. Sometimes it is to use Notion differently. Sometimes it is to rethink how I use my inbox entirely. Sometimes it is to hire someone. Like right now, I'm stuck in front of a bunch of changes that effectively require me to hire people. And that's why I'm making changes to the business, and will likely be making changes to things like sponsors, so I can justify the fact that I'm like probably going to double or triple my spend on employees over the next year, which means we need more income, which means we need more ads. So yeah, 2 ads per video probably coming soon. What's Adam got for me? Oh yeah, that was a hilarious tweet. Lazy loading MCP, yeah, overdue. OpenAI rant's coming, guys. I'm sorry. There's just a lot going on. Happy people are not upset about the 2 ads per vid. I've analyzed a lot of other YouTubers, both in and out of tech, and there are some that when you like, if you measure by number of minutes of content against number of ads, we are some of the least ad dense content on the platform. And I also don't charge, and I also don't play mid rolls in the videos. I'm starting to breathe out of my nose again. It is better-ish. So the reason YouTube ads or allows ads within videos is because YouTube dies without it. I'm actually going to be talking about this a bit in my video about the OpenAI stuff. The amount of money I make off of ads is fucking jack shit. But sponsors are significant. Like, one sponsor makes me more money than the entire, like one ad in one video makes more money than all of the YouTube ad or money for all of my videos for a month. So it's more than a 30x gap. It's insane. This means a lot, Dip. Thank you for that. Yeah, I will likely do one at the beginning and end. I don't know what the charge rate is going to be, how we're going to handle those things. We're figuring out all the details. Just know it's coming. It will meaningfully improve the position we are in to do cooler, bigger things. Like, this will give us the income to justify hiring 2 to 3 more people, to do events, to do a lot of other shit. I'm excited. I don't care how many ads you do. Yours are the only relevant ones, and they tend to have free offerings too that you can try with zero stress. Fuck yeah. Really going for that. Like, seriously, I want to make sure, like, we're not going to do the generic fucking VPN ads or like foods delivery services or fucking gambling or crypto or any of that shit. No, I have so many cool companies I want to be showing you guys, but I'm literally out of ad space right now. So we're going to increase the amount of space. Thank you, Kevin Vandy, for the 4 months of support. 44 months total. Been around for fucking ever. Hope you're doing well. And then Pure Fact with the 4 months as well. Oh shit, so okay, that'll be fun. Yeah, ArcJet's dope. They'll be in a lot more stuff. So you can use Twitch chat and watch on YouTube. That's totally fine. You can pop out the Twitch chat. There's a bunch of ways to do it. Just click the pop out chat button and just have that open, or split tabs. I do that all the time. Fuck yeah, Tuple is so good. Honestly, I don't want to sell things to my audience. T3 chat, obviously I will, because it's the thing I built. But I don't want to have a set of products I'm trying to sell you guys, because to be frank, they won't be as good as the products that companies dedicating themselves to building will be. Oh, it was just a joke. Yeah, in an ideal world, you guys get all of my content for free, and I have the budget to make cooler, better content because you get to hear about relevant things as part of my videos. I think we're doing well with that. I put a lot of work into the way we do ads right now. It's good enough that a lot of other creators are hitting me up to run their shit too. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. Oh yeah, Twitch background playing is not super stable, but when it does work, it is very nice. Cool, good shit. Let me... I'm gonna spit out my cough drop quick and then we can get started. Do ads featuring more than one product at a time exist? I've actually considered this because I think like a lot of our sponsors are very complimentary. Like it'd be really cool to have a showcase where I show how easy it is to integrate FAL, the media generation platform, with Convex. That said, it makes the pitch less clear. It makes getting things on board harder. Like a lot of our process is around how do we get the brand to be happy as quickly as possible with as little effort as possible. Usually they reach out. Occasionally we reach out. A lot of our sponsors come from going to conferences and going up to the brands and effectively saying, if you're willing to spend money on a booth that doesn't convert, you should probably be willing to spend money on a channel that does. That goes really well. Like our rates are way lower than a booth at any event, and you get way more from one of my videos than 3 days in an event. So that's kind of the angle we're going with now is like, if you have budget to buy a billboard, to do events, to do shit like that, and you're trying to target the types of people that are in my audience, why the fuck are you wasting your money? Give it to us instead. A good template with Tansec start, better off, convex, and bun. Nope, but if you built that, I'm sure people would use it. Better T-Stack might have most of that, and if not, I'm sure you could contribute the differences, and they would be very happy to see it. Matthew, I am going to screenshot that comment because that is a very, very good example of why we do what we do. Do I want to see something nice from the snitch bench work? Of course, but are you down to hold that until I film this first video so I stop getting so distracted? If you have to run, I can look at it now, but if you're down to wait like 40 minutes to an hour for me to film this first, then I will do that because I need to start filming or I will forget. Cool. Let me grab my other sources. Cool. Feeling pretty good. I still want to think of how I'm going to package this. Normally I would be a little deeper in like how I want to brand this video before I film it, but there are lots of different ways to package this. So I'm not too worried. I just hope that I don't hate the intro if I changed my mind on how I want to frame it. We'll just go with it. Marker. Chat GPT. Go. Cool. Let's do it. Also, OpenAI revenue split. I want to grab this as well. Yeah, cool. We can work with that from here. Yeah, Control Shift X or Option Shift X. Cool, nice. That should be everything we need. Awesome. Let's dive in. actually need to blow my nose. So after that, okay, we're good. Yeah, let's do it. It seems like OpenAI has finally woken up to the fact that they have competition. Fuck. Retake. Seems like OpenAI finally realized that they have competition. Today, they announced a really big change, and I think it underpins some really... Yeah, third time's the charm. Seems like OpenAI realized that they have competition, and they're finally making changes to address it that really seem to underpin this deep fear they have about losing the market. Today, OpenAI dropped ChatGPT Go, their new $8 a month plan across the whole world. Originally, this plan only existed in India as a way to have presence in markets that don't have quite as much spend per person. And now it's around everywhere. And a big part of how they're handling this is through adding ads to ChatGPT. Yes, really. You will now get ads in ChatGPT on the free tier and on the $8 a month tier, almost like Netflix style. Kind of crazy, and it shows some really big rethinkings going on at OpenAI about how they make money. There's a reason that they're doing this. There's a deeper reason why they're doing this that I want to talk a lot about. Their share of the generative AI traffic market. And that thing is their share of the market. Historically, OpenAI has held a very large portion of it, way over 75% a year ago, and it has very quickly plummeted to the point where it's get closer to 50 than it is to 80. Retake. OpenAI is losing their share of the market. They were comfortably over 75%, closer to 85, 12 months ago, and they've already made their way down. And since then, they've dropped all the way to the 60s. That is crazy. Google is coming in and really squeezing out market from OpenAI, and they are terrified and making changes accordingly. I don't know how well those changes will work, though. I think a lot about these things, both the business side and the developer side, but also different sources of revenue and how they work and how those affect people in the market. I think a lot about how people make decisions around what they do and don't use, and also, I'm a direct competitor. T3 Chat just so happens to be a very similar price. As the previous leading owner of an $8 a month chat service, I have a lot to say here. But if they're going to come eat out our margins, we still got to eat. So we'll do a quick break for today's sponsor first. Cool. I can work with this. Let's get started. The irony of running an ad before talking about why ads don't work is definitely getting to me. We'll talk about that a lot near the end because ads are an interesting way for OpenAI to start making revenue. I have a lot of thoughts there. But first, we should briefly go over what is ChatGPT Go. Then we should talk about why OpenAI is so scared. And then, one of my favorite topics, why $8? Lots to talk about here. So first, what is ChatGPT Go? On one hand, it's like T3 chat, but it has ads, it has less chat models, and an overall on one hand, it's kind of like T3 chat. It's $8 a month, and you can retake. On one hand, it's a lot like T3 chat. It's $8 a month, and you can generate images, talk to the models, and also get ads, which we won't have, probably will never have. But there are other differences, like on ChatGPT, and there are other differences though. Like on T3 chat, we have every model, all of them, like all of them. We just had to redo our model picker in order to make them all fit better. Very proud of what we have here. OpenAI's introduction of Go is more so an attempt to capture some of the market that they haven't fully yet. And to their credit, there are things it will do better than T3 chat. People really like voice mode and just talking to the model. They are the best place to do that. If you're still psyoped by GPT-4o and feel like that's the only model you can justify talking to, we removed it from T3 chat, so it's over there. That's the only thing we don't have now. They also have a better mobile app because we don't have a mobile app yet. Coming very soon. Let me do something dumb, though. One sec. Cool, done. In order to counteract this, in order to counteract the gap here, I'm going to put a... Since we finally have an $8 a month competitor, I'll sweeten the deal on T3 chat. You can get your first month for $1 with code you can get your first month for $1 with code ADFREE at checkout. Ad-free. In phase, I just made the code. It's good to go. Yes, that's access to every single model as well as... Yes, that's access to every model, including image generation, for just $8 a month and just $1 for your first month. Check it out. We put a lot of work in. I'm proud of what we built. I think you'll be surprised. And if you hate it, flame me on Twitter so we can fix it. Okay, done with talking about T3 chat. I really want to focus on this and the margins and the way this all works. The goal of ChatGPT Co in India was to have a low-cost subscription designed to expand access to ChatGPT's most popular features and help more people use advanced AI in their daily life. This is one of the biggest pieces here. There is a stickiness to using these tools. I know a lot of people that didn't use ChatGPT a whole lot when it first came out, but then eventually there's one thing it does well for them. They get really into it, and then it becomes just part of their day-to-day. And that's really the play that OpenAI has to bank on, is how do we get more people to integrate this in their day-to-day life? That said, these customers aren't cheap. The cost of a message on ChatGPT is non-trivial. If you look at the pricing for GPT 5.2, you'll see what I mean. 1 million input tokens is $1.75 and 1 million output tokens is $14. So if you take a random thread somebody has, especially if they're doing things that use more tokens, like they're attaching their Google Drive account and it's indexing it and pulling a lot of data from it, it's easy for a thread to do 100,000 tokens. Probably not all as output, and a lot of it will be cached, but it is not uncommon for people to have a long thread that they send a message in, and each individual message can cost 10 to 30 cents. That's a very real number that I've seen hit many times on platforms like T3 Chat. That's why we have to have GPT 5.2, the thinking version, as a premium model. And honestly, since they bumped the price from $10 per mail out to $14 with 5.2, it's probably time that we move 5.2 over with the immediate non-reasoning mode as well. On top of that, reasoning boosts the amount of output tokens by a ton. The cost of these things is going up consistently. And some of the tests and benchmarks I run, they'll do a few hundred messages, can cost $10 to $30 to run. Like, the inference costs money. And you might think this is them massively overpricing on the API to give them more margins. And I understand why you'd think that, but I've run a lot of smart models on my own hardware, and the costs are very high. Just running generic open weight models on my RTX 5090 nearly doubled my power bill. Running that full time is over $2,000 a month of just power. That's crazy. These things are expensive. I would not be surprised if this was them honestly, their margin could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if this was 20% profit or they were selling the API at a 20% loss. And this makes even more sense when you look at the breakdown of their revenue. At the end of 2024, if you broke down OpenAI's rev, they made 3 to 4x more off of subscriptions to ChatGPT than they made off of the API. That is insane. So just think about this, guys. For every ChatGPT wrapper, ChatGPT itself makes 3 times more. If you take all of the ChatGPT wrappers and put them together, they are doing a third as much, or if you take all the ChatGPT wrappers and put them all together, they're doing less than a third as much inference, or retake. If you take all of the ChatGPT wrappers and combine them together, the amount of money that makes for OpenAI is less than a third of how much money they make off of subs. So why the fuck would they be focused on the APIs when they could be driving the subscriptions? Especially because they're now starting to get more competition from companies that are more focused on that vertical integration and having these pieces built into their existing services. It's also worth noting the gap here when compared to Anthropic, who makes way more money off the API than they do off of their subscriptions. That is starting to change due to the fact that Claude Code has the $200 a month plan. But the goal of all of these companies is specifically to get us to... But the goal of all of these companies is to get us addicted to their product, their UX, their tools, their features, their things, so that we stick with them. And that's kind of crazy when you think about how big of a loss that $8 a month price is. A big part of why we can offer that pricing is because we limit how much you can use the really expensive models and try to encourage you to use the cheaper ones that are still really, really good. We also limit how much context you can have in a thread in order to keep a given message from costing us an egregious amount of money. These are all optimizations and changes we've had to make over time to tune the price performance margin on T3 chat so you feel like you're getting a good deal and we don't lose our butts immediately. There are still around 1% of people who cost us 2 to 4 times more than the subscription, but they have to put effort in to do that, and the majority of users aren't quite costing us $8, so the margins work out. We are roughly profitable, really proud of where we're at. But we don't have billions of dollars of investment in crazy long-term potentials like our competitors like OpenAI do. I know you're probably thinking, you're not a competitor with OpenAI. What the hell are you saying? You don't make models yourself. Well, we need to be realistic here. When OpenAI makes the vast majority of their revenue selling a subscription to a chat web app, they are competing with us. We both make the majority of our income for our businesses the same way, the app layer. Just because OpenAI has integrations through other things does not mean we are not competition. Just because they regularly give me early access to try things does not mean we're not competition. We are threatening to commoditize their layer, and that is scary to them, which is why they're trying to make their product more and more compelling. Even at the cost of money, they could very well lose a lot of money on the subscription tier, but there are reasons that is a worthwhile bet. Let's do a quick tangent on why it's okay for them to lose money. There's a couple things that seem to be true over time in markets like this. One of these two is always true. Either costs go down or willingness to spend goes up. And right now, OpenAI does not seem to know which will happen. I assume they are betting that some amount of both will. So if right now the inference that somebody is doing for $8 a month could cost them money, as models get better and smaller and cheaper to run, as OpenAI gets more hardware to run them on, and more optimizations are made to make it cheaper to actually do that work, their margins will increase. If right now it costs them $10 to do $8 a month, or if right now a user could cost them $10 on the $8 a month plan, it's possible that in 6 months, the exact same usage will only cost them $4 a month if they make the models smaller and cheaper, which they have done in the past. I've seen them do crazy things like cut O3's price by like, what was it, 8 or 10x when they found a better way to run it that was cheaper. They will get costs down. They will be able to get under that tier, but they want to capture the customers now, and they're willing to do that at a cost. OpenAI is so desperate to keep these users and get them addicted to their product that they are willing to lose money for now, knowing that either their margins will get better as the models get cheaper and faster and smaller and easier to run, or worst case, when they can't do that for some reason, they can increase the price and people will be too scared to leave. I'm going to talk more about how costs go down in a sec, but I want to go on one other tangent, which is the willingness to spend going up and what it looks like to put people in that hostage situation. There is one golden example of this from the past. The one that they are almost certainly looking at. Google's Workspaces product. You know, the thing that lets you use your own domain on Gmail that you can run your business through. Hang on one second, I'm going to clear out some things. Cool. Let's just ask Gemini 3 about how Google Workspace pricing has changed over time. I was here for all of these steps, which is why I wanted to break it down. When Google originally launched apps for your domain, it was free. They kept the free tier around for 6 years until 2012. I still miss that free tier. I used it for a ton of shit when I was younger. In 2007, they added the Premier edition for larger businesses. That was $50 per user per year, which was like $4 a month. That was a good deal. Then in 2016, they rebranded it as G Suite, and it was $5 per user per month. And then the fancy business tier, which included their unlimited storage that they have since walked back, was $10 per user per month. They kept it at that $5 a month price for a long time, but then in 2019, they bumped it to $6 per month. Then in 2020, they rebranded again. They increased the cost if you were using storage more, but for the most part, it was still the same. But then we started to get way more price hikes. In 2023, it bumped to $7.20, and it seems like the training data is out of date on Gemini. What a surprise. The price just got hiked again to $8.40. So they went from keeping a pretty stable price for upwards of a decade, and then over the last 5 years, they've increased it 3 times. I bring this up because this is what happens when you win your market. You start for free, you get a bunch of users, you charge them a reasonable amount, nobody questions it. You bump it slightly to test out the market and its tolerance for price changes. And this is a very small bump, going from $5 to $6, or going from $5 to $6, whatever. Then they bumped it to $7.20, and then just 2 years later, they bumped it again. Very clearly, Google is taking advantage of the fact that nobody can cancel their G Suite subscriptions. People are saying this is within inflation. It is not. Inflation happened between 2007 and 2019, and the price did not change that much in that window. This is a meaningful price bump. To go from $6 to $8.40 shows that they are confident in their position and that nobody could fuck with them, because you can't really move off of G Suite once you're on it. So Google has proven this out. It is more important to get your users hooked on your service than to nickel and dime them immediately, because if you can get them deep enough, they are now integrated into your systems and you can hold them. But there's a big aspect of this that makes it work: the bundle. And funny enough, this is also the thing that is currently killing them over at OpenAI, because Google has this compelling bundle already. They have the G Suite. They have Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Gmail, all of these other integrations, all of these other tools that are very useful to companies that an individual can't realistically move off of once they've adopted. And now that bundle all comes at one price. And now they're adding more things to the bundle, like Gemini. And I want to be very, very clear about this. The only reason anyone would use Gemini, including Google employees, is because they have to, because their employer said so, probably to save money, or it's somehow the only thing they've heard about. There are very few people who pick Gemini over other solutions because, to be frank, the apps are terrible. It is very unpleasant to use. The gap between Gemini and something like T3 Chat is hilarious, which is why we have so many people who like the Gemini models moving to T3 Chat, because we're just the better way to use them. With OpenAI's models, there is much more argument to be had. There are things that the OpenAI models do well on ChatGPT, things like their memory product that people really like that we haven't done just yet, and the chances of us getting memory as good as them are relatively low. Everything else, we wipe the floor with Google, though. Like, it's just comical how much better the experience is with Google's models and other products. But OpenAI doesn't have a bundle in the same way. I'm going to be paying that $8 a month for Google, whether or not I'm using Gemini. If I use it 0 times a month or thousands of times a month, I'm still going to pay for that. I am there, which means over time, if the products get more commoditized, the gap between the two gets lesser and lesser, the likelihood that somebody keeps their ChatGPT subscription is going down. This is part of why that $8 number is so interesting. It seems like they're trying to fit within the tiering that Google has. I'm not going to sit here and pretend they're copying our price. They're not. There is a lot of psychology behind the price that, funny enough, the game studio that made Peak put out recently. I want to read this because it's so true and actually kind of funny as a result. In a player's mind, what does it mean to spend $5? Well, that's $5. But $6, that's still kind of $5. We round in our brains to specific numbers. It's like 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 is kind of how our brains work. $4 is also kind of $5, he continued. $3 is $2, and $2 is basically free. So we've got these tiers, $12, that's $10. $13 is $15 though. And we found that $8 is somehow still $5. It doesn't become $10. $7.99, that's $5, right? So $8 going to $5 is the biggest differential we could find in pricing, so we found it very optimal. It's silly, but this is actually how we thought about it when we priced T3 Chat at $8 a month. $5 would kill our margins. It would be way, way too tight. We wouldn't be able to offer a lot. $10 makes it a little too expensive for people to justify, but $8 feels close enough to $5, but massively improves our margins to let us do the things we want to do. So $8 is a really good price tier in that regard, where it feels like $5, but it's actually closer to $10, which lets you have much more margin to work with. I want to find the artificial analysis report that I always use quick. I think I have it in my PDFs. Okay, the search is not helping me at all. I'll do it the old school way. Access report. Switch over to here. Ta-da. Stop me if you've seen this one before. I cite this report from Artificial Analysis a lot, specifically this part, which is the vertical integration across different businesses in the AI space. A company like OpenAI sells applications, like you use chatgpt.com to use the models. They also have the models that they make themselves. They also have inference that they sell for you to use the models over the API that they charge money for. The thing they don't have is their own hardware, which is really interesting. Most companies don't, because making GPUs and AI accelerated chips is a very hard thing to do. OpenAI has played around with the idea of investing in this space or buying a company that's already done it, but hasn't made the commitment. It's actually one of the things that's in that weird Elon OpenAI lawsuit. Info about this keeps coming out. Other companies in this space, like Anthropic, are in a very similar place to OpenAI. What makes Google so interesting is they do all the same things, but they also are making their own chips. Google makes their TPUs specifically to have the most efficient, fast-running, cheapest AI inference possible. And it's so good that Meta is now licensing it from Google. Meta is going to buy a bunch of servers from Google instead of NVIDIA to run their inference because it's more powerful and cheaper. Very, very big deal. This is a big part of why OpenAI is now working with Cerebras, which is a company that does this in particular. They make chips to do accelerated inference cheaper and faster. And if this partnership works out and OpenAI can make their models run better and cheaper on Cerebras' infrastructure, they can knock their costs down meaningful amounts. And yes, thank you, chat. I know Anthropic's also using Google's TPUs. They just recently started expanding to Google Cloud to use those as well. This is how everybody's competing. They all need to find things that are cheaper than GPUs. I'm probably going to do a whole video dedicated to just that, but it's important to know that the companies are trying to find ways to knock costs down by reducing power usage, by reducing hardware costs, and by reducing the amount of time it takes to generate a response, thereby usually decreasing costs. So Google is chewing out their margins. They are taking meaningful pieces of the market from OpenAI, and OpenAI can't compete with Google, but Google can compete with OpenAI, if that makes sense. OpenAI doesn't have the chip fobs that Google does. OpenAI doesn't have an email everyone uses like Google does. OpenAI doesn't have a docs and product platform for managing your company's files like Google does. Google's already become an essential part of your stack. And if Google can get more people on Gemini by giving it out for free, doing it with ads, embedding it into everything, and having it be part of your existing $8 a month sub, OpenAI is going to struggle a lot to sell a $20 a month subscription. That's why they're introducing the $8 a month tier, because they know they have a better product, and they absolutely do. ChatGPT is so far and ahead of what any of the other labs offer for a chat application. It's hilarious. But there's an important piece for this to all work. Ads. I have a challenge for you, the listener. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you might have seen this number in the past, but I'm going to ask you now. I'll also pull up chat so you guys can put your thoughts in as well. I get a lot of viewership on YouTube. I get the equivalent of 4 Super Bowl commercials worth of viewership a month. That is the equivalent of if you take all the time people spent sitting and watching a Super Bowl ad, add 4 of those together and the amount of time consumed, that's how much time is spent watching my videos every month. It's an unbelievable amount of time. If you know the answer to this next question, bite your tongue for a second, guys. And please don't put me saying that in the video. It's not necessary. So if you know the answer to this, don't say it. But if you don't, I want you to speculate. How much money do you think I make per month off of ads on YouTube? Not off of my sponsors, just off of the ad revenue that I get from Google because there are ads opening and closing my videos. How much money do you think that makes a month? Seeing 100K, seeing 3,000, seeing less than 10K. Interesting. Y'all watch a lot of my stuff, clearly, if you know that these numbers are in this range. Remember, 4 Super Bowl commercials of viewership. Reminder, a 30-second Super Bowl commercial costs $7 million. So how much do you think I make off of ads? Okay. I will show you, as the transparent YouTuber I am. It is between $5,000 and $8,000 a month. It is almost enough to pay my editor sometimes. It is not enough to pay the rest of my team, or me, or any of our other expenses. That is not a number I could sustain the channel with, or even come close. The amount of money ads make is so much less than people seem to think. It is hilarious how small the number is. Let me find my CPM somewhere in here. Let me... Here is my actual CPM chart over time. For some reason, this one random video has a much higher CPM, but for the most part, they are quite a bit lower. CPM stands for cost per milli, which is 1,000. So this is how much money I make off of 1,000 impressions. And the number is a lot less bad than it used to be. If I change this to lifetime breaks on my channel, because my channel has technically existed for a very long time. So I'll change this to be a more reasonable custom range. Let's do 23 to now. My CPMs regularly hover between $3 and $6 per mil, or per milli. So that is for every 1,000 ad impressions, somebody watching an ad, I make $3 every 1,000 at best. That's so low. Some CPMs are higher in specific categories, but when it comes to ads that are being automatically placed in a piece of content via things like an ad distribution network, there is not that much money there. There just isn't. On one hand, my numbers are slightly better than others. On the other hand, they're actually quite a bit worse. And if you're wondering about how YouTube Premium factors in, it used to pay slightly higher than average, but recently it's down by like 80% of what I would expect from traditional CPMs. So I actually make a tiny bit more money off of people watching without premium than with. But to be frank, I don't care. Watch my videos however you want. Watch them with ad block. It doesn't make an actual difference to my income because these numbers are not enough to even come close to funding the business. That's why I turned off mid-rolls. And even with mid-rolls on, my revenue was not great. It was at best, I think I had a $9,000 month once. The vast majority of my income for the channel comes from sponsors by like more than a 30x difference. It is so absurd. I make more off of one ad than I make per month on the channel consistently. I need you guys to understand the sponsors are what makes this all work. Without them, we die. Which is why seeing a company going all in on ads like this is interesting because ads don't make jack fucking shit for revenue. I also know this because I worked at Twitch for a while, and we worked really hard to try and make ads on Twitch profitable. It was hard to even get ads it was hard to even get ads to a point where they would pay for the bandwidth to send them to you, much less the engineers working on it, much less the cost of the rest of the things much less the cost of everything else that we were worried about, like distributing the actual content. Ads is a very hard business to make money in, which is why there's only two companies that consistently do it, Google and Meta. And a big part of how they do it is because they have incredibly sharp targeting with their ad platforms. They know so much about the people that they are giving ads to that they can get really, really specific and give brands all these knobs to tune to get the exact type of person they want. If they want if they want fathers between ages 20 and 24 who had a Coke recently in Detroit, they can target down to that level because they have so much information no one else does. OpenAI might have some information that's useful through memory and whatnot, but they're also talking differently about how they plan to target so specifically. Apparently he says this in here. Cool. They specify that they will not accept money to influence the answers that ChatGPT gives you. The conversations will be private from advertisers, but this wording is very sus. We'll keep your conversations private from advertisers. What they won't keep private is what they know about you. They might not necessarily share that directly with the advertisers, but they will use the information they have based on your chat history to add all of these knobs that the advertisers can use to target specific demographics. That is scary. And it's not a thing most people would want to do. Funny enough, in 2024, Sam even said as much. Thank you for this link, guys.
I kind of think of ads as like a last resort for us for a business model. I would do it if it meant that was the only way to get everybody in the world like access to great services. But if we can find something that doesn't do that, I'd prefer that.
He did not want to do this. I'll throw this link in Notion quick. What? Cool. Yeah, very clear he did not want to do this. So part of the bet here is that people will get personal enough with their use of ChatGPT that it will know way too much about them so they can target better and hopefully make a little bit more money from said ads. I wish them luck because doing this right is really, really, really hard. And again, if you don't want ads and you only want to pay $8, bad news. You can pay $1 instead if you use code bad news. You can only bad news. Price actually $1 for your first month in T3 chat. Just use code adfree at checkout. Big drama. Oh yeah, I saw this. Don't really have anything for that. For this though. What's this vid? Oh, yeah. Silicon Valley might get me DMCA'd. Can't risk it. Yeah. And just as a nice reminder of how much these companies know about you, Signal tried to do ads on Instagram and Facebook refused because they wouldn't do the ads with too much. Signal tried to do a transparent ad campaign on Instagram and Facebook refused to let them and banned their account as a result. My assumption is they were saying things about how they won't track you. You got this ad because you're a teacher, but more importantly, you're a Leo and single. This ad used your location to see that you're in Moscow. You like to support sketch comedy, and this ad thinks you do drag. This is, again, because they have all this info, so they can make custom ads based on the knobs. Usually people have specific people they want to target, and they use the knobs to target them. This is the opposite. Signal wanted to use the knobs as the ad itself, and they did not like that, so they got banned. Because this is a huge threat to the model. Instagram, Facebook, Google, and all of these things, if you knew as the user how much they knew about you, you would stop. And you know that classic conspiracy everybody's always worried about, the classic, your phone listens to you? It does not. This is factually false. It is so easy to verify. What's actually happening is way scarier. If you talk about somebody, if you're talking about something with someone and then you go use Instagram and you get an ad for it, you're freaking out because you think it heard the conversation. What they did was way worse. You saw the ad before, didn't realize, and it influenced the conversation. It's not that the phone knows what you're talking about, it's that your phone tells you what to talk about. Terrifying if you think about it. But now there's a company that you actually talk to a bunch on your phone, a company that people regularly use the product of with their mic just on. ChatGPT. I know a lot of people who have been one shot by the ChatGPT app and they just have it on for their whole car ride. They just talk to their phone and have it answer questions and things. That chat history is part of OpenAI's profile of you, their understanding of you, their memory of you. Memory might seem cool as a feature, but it's also an insane method to target very, very specific details about you. Yeah, that's the only reason OpenAI has any chance in the ad market is they have so much information, but that also is sketchy as hell, and you should be somewhat concerned. Yeah, I wouldn't touch this tier with a 10-foot pole personally, but like I'm also on the $200 a month tier because I abuse it in Codex, so judge me for all of the above and more. I deserve it. Did I hit on all my tangents here? Yeah. I think I've said all I have to on this one. Take it from the person who's focused, or take it from the person who bet way too much of their career on an $8 a month sub. This is going to be a hard play for them to maintain. I'm curious how it goes and how people end up feeling about these ads. Let me know how you feel about all of this in the comments. And until next time, peace, nerds. Cool. Because I'm scared of changing it. Yes, I'd love to see the Snitch Bench thing. And no, I haven't looked at Gastown. I now associate it with all the crypto bullshit, so. The prevalence of ad block hurts some amount, but you would be amazed at how much of my viewership is on mobile and TV, which are two platforms that have almost zero ad blocking. I think that my premium viewership split is close to my desktop viewership split. So interesting. It generated all of this. Here's like from Nature paper. So using the outputs as style recreation targets after analyzing, critiquing them. These are the outputs. That's really cool. Should I know what NB2 is? I did not see that your extension broke. That is really, really cool. Oh, Banana 2. Oh, yeah. Duh. Cool. Thank you. Super, super cool. Good work. It's kind of crazy you can generate useful visualizations like that. Let me thank all the people I missed when I was doing all that. We got TJ Cravey with the Prime, Braver with the Prime, 13 Stripes with the Prime, Shamu with the gift to Python player, and PHP Die with the Prime as well. Thank you all again for the support. That was a lot of things I had to talk about there. I've not been coding enough for the last week to like really be using jujitsu. It's mostly like vibe coding in the background, and I'm tired of trying to teach it to like Opus 4.5 mostly gets jujitsu, but makes a few annoying errors with it that I want to have corrected, probably with better opinions, but I'm not using it enough to develop those opinions. So one of the things I want someone to make for me is a JJ skill with an opinionated workflow for using JJ on GitHub to keep things in sync. So I can just tell the model to do a thing, it will do it, and then I'll see what it does and learn from it. But right now, when I tell it to do something with JJ, it fucks up twice and then gets it right, and I don't feel like I'm learning enough as a result. And I also want a similar convex skill. So I was going to do like most models, or most good models in right harnesses can now one-shot convex setups, but they make mistakes throughout. It'd be nice to have convex recommendations as a skill to steer it in the right direction and have direct links to the docs that it might need. Those are two things that I am interested in either making myself, or if somebody else makes them, I would gladly try them. Interesting. Sub-second inference. Apache 2 for the 4B model, but open weight on the 9B, which means that that's a licensing thing. Very interesting. There's a fun example. They say, like, turn around the guy, make him hold balloons, then put him on a skateboard, and it has pretty good consistency throughout. Yeah, this looks like it's pretty good. Yeah, the end-to-end latency is really cool. The fact that it does that stuff that fast is actually really exciting, and I'd love to play with it. So if the 4 bill fits on 13 gigs, the 9 bill should fit on a 5090, right? Because that's 32 gigs. Because it can't be more than like 2.5x. Yay, I can actually use the 9 bill. I will play with that after stream. Thank you guys for letting me know. I'll put that in here so I have it for later. Cool. Could be interesting. I want to make it easier to test different theories in the benchmark. Ooh, Wayne has a convex skills repo already. Thank you, chat. This is exactly what I had in mind. Cool. I will set that up after stream as well. 24, 28 gigs of VRAM? Fuck yeah. Dylan Mulroy's experimenting with JJ as well, and I'm very excited about Starship. Yeah. Something I almost talked about in my video was the fact that it like we now have to compete with the bundle that is the $200 a month tier that gives you CLI access and access to the like chat interface. So you're doing one sub for all of those. That's a bundle we have to fight, and we're still figuring out what that looks like. What is this? Interesting. Yeah, I saw the scaling agents post. I want to read it, but I've had like all of my content consumption for the last week has been on stream. This I'll watch later as well. The competitive advantage is that T3 chat doesn't suck to use. You get every model and it's $8. This also looks interesting. We'll save that. Thank you for the link. What I'm looking for? No. What I'm looking for is a skill for me to use with things like cursor, like Claude Code or Codex, where it will understand JJ better. So sorry, YouTube chat, too much going on, and I keep forgetting to come back here. YouTube catching up. Let me refresh it so it's more caught up. One monitor is criminal. I live life in one monitor usually. Oh, Cowork has anti-slop features. Interesting. Thank you, PHP Die, for the 5 months. Yeah, to be frank, like trying to convince me of your own work right now is going to be really hard just because of how behind I am on shit. The best strat is almost always going to be to convince somebody on my team or somebody who's around me of the thing. And then they will bring it to me when it makes sense. Even somebody like Maria, if you can convince her that your shit's really good and that I should talk about it, she will probably make sure I do. Thank you, Code Bradley, for the 5 months, or for the 5 bomb there. Really appreciate that. Generosity means a ton. And rkirk92 with the 10 months of Prime. Back here, I'll do the Cloudflare Astro thing, as I am realistically one of few people that is in the weeds enough to cover this one properly. I'm not following Cloudflare Devon, they're following me. That's actually hilarious. I will follow them back, but I wanted to just screenshot that first. Yeah, I'll watch this at some point too. Is OpenWork the one that Langchain did? Or are there two things named OpenWork? There are two things named OpenWork. That is hilarious. I need the original announcement post. I also have to actually set it up on my machine. 1 sec to hide things when I do that. It actually wants to use Safari, even though it's not my default browser. Beautiful. This is going to be so annoying. Oh my God. I do actually need to film this part. This is so bad. Oh shit, there's a Claude Cowork article from Simon. Fuck yeah. I'll put that in main sources. Cool. So I am recording right now because I want to have the shit show of the setup experience documented because I am horrified. So I just installed Claude for Mac. It's time to get started. Okay, that's fine. I'll continue with Google. It's now asking to open Safari, a browser that I would uninstall if I could. I have multiple other browsers, including stock Chrome, Chrome Beta, Helium, and my default Zen, and it's not choosing to use any of those. So what happens when I click here? It brings me to this embedded Claude.ai web view using a Safari web view. And now I have to click continue with Google again, which I just did. And it opens up another web view. The first time this happened, it froze, which is why I wanted to show you guys. And the best part is I can't use one password for this, and I can't use my passkeys for this. I can't do this. This is going to take me actual time to sign into because they couldn't bother with a basic redirect flow like they have in, I don't know, Claude Code, the other product that I signed into recently through Anthropic. Can they go vibe code a solution that actually works for fucking auth? Like, is Claude Code and Opus really good? Yes. Are engineers going to lose jobs because of how good these tools are? Maybe. Is Anthropic demonstrating how capable they are at engineering as a result of their tools? Abso-fucking-lutely not. It is hilarious how much random shit is broken because they don't care enough to fix it. Because everybody at Anthropic's already signed in. They don't care. They don't check it. They don't try it. And most of them don't even use Claude.ai. They just use Claude Code to ask it questions. Like, it's... Claude.ai is probably the worst chat experience from a major lab unless you count one of the 5 instances of Gemini. It's just, there's so many of these things that I experience every time I try to just sign into Claude. One moment while I get this working. Oh, I have to scan the passkey on my phone because it can't use the passkey on my computer because they don't know how to fucking write code. Hitting more buttons. Oh God, I wish I had the screen open for that. 3 separate modals just popped up. 1, 2, 3. The preview for Cowork, which I'll X out of so you can see the quickly chat to Claude in a few taps that's underneath. Hide, hide, continue. And now I can actually use it. Oh God, the treatment on that little blue icon there is clipping. It's literally clipping. Are you kidding? Oh my God, I want to like this. I want to see the value here, but holy shit, they do not know how to build apps at all. Oh my God. Okay, I should have shown that before because when I clicked the Cowork, it lagged a whole bunch. The second time it flashed in. Are you kidding? Yeah, when you go to Cowork, it reloads the whole page. Let me find the tweet quick. Someone asked, how much of this feature or how much of Cowork did Claude Code write? And Boris answered all of it. Did Claude Code also QA it? Like, I don't want to sit here and be this mean. I actually came in excited, but just getting to the feature has resulted in me seeing so many fucking skeletons. Like, I can't get over that. The whole UI flickers out. They can't even get Claude to work in the fucking code base for Claude.ai now. They just, like, I'll be saying this a lot throughout this video. I'm sorry in advance. Anthropic, we can lay down our pitchforks. We can come together. We can be purchased to come in and fix this. You clearly don't have engineers that care enough or understand enough about user experience, or they don't have the right leadership or ownership or opportunity to make an app that's actually pleasant to use. I would be down to get over my bullshit and bring my team in to unfuck your bullshit. But I'm not doing it till you open source Claude code. That is a hard line. Anyways, let's figure out if Cowork's any useful. Or let's figure out if Cowork's of any use. Cool. That's the end of the setup mess. I think I should just go right into this one now because I have it open now and I want to use it. So I'll do Cloudflare after. Thank you for this. I think I already had this one, but still good. Order these accordingly. Let's do it. Gonna blow my nose quick, then we'll do it. Okay, deed's done. Sorry about the delay. I had a lot more mucus in me than I was hoping. Let's do it. I have a confession to make. I've been using Claude Code a lot, but not just for code. In fact, I feel like half of my use cases or more aren't traditional coding tasks, like making changes to a code base that I intend to ship. I find that Claude Code is most useful for just using my computer. I want to retake on this intro. I have a confession to make. I've been using Claude Code a lot, like almost every day. So where are all of the changes that I'm building? Where's all the code that I'm making? I'm not. I know that sounds crazy. What's the point of Claude Code if not to code? Well, I'm using it for much more personal use cases. It's kind of like a way that I use the computer now. Whether I'm trying to analyze iMessage history through whether I'm trying to analyze my iMessage history through the SQLite bindings, I'm trying to organize files on my computer, trying to find that one picture of this one thing that's in my giant nonstop growing downloads folder. I find that Claude Code is incredible for doing things on my computer just as much as it is for changing code in a code base. Which is why I'm not at all surprised by the new product that was just dropped by Anthropic, Cowork. Claude Cowork Claude Cowork is an opportunity. Cowork is their attempt to take Claude Code into the Co-work's their attempt to make these use cases for Cloud Code accessible to everyone, making it easier to use with your computer directly as a normal person, not somebody spending all their time in the terminal. Let's watch their little preview and hope they don't DMCA. Let's watch their little preview and hope they don't have music that'll DMCA me like they love to do all the time. Look at that. The question UI made its way in. The to-do list made it in. You can follow up messages while it's working, and it handles all that. And it can take over Chrome, which is actually a really cool feature. And it can generate a deck, which is funny because Anthropic's the only major lab that hasn't shipped an image model of any form. So it can't actually generate images. It has to do all of this through code, which is hilarious. Oh, man. There's a lot of interesting things happening here. I have opinions on most of them, and I'll be frank, I do actually think this is a good product that makes a lot of sense, and in some ways, it seems like our first taste of AGI in a very real way. That said, I also crashed out very hard. That said, I also had a full-on crash out just trying to install the app because Anthropic, despite having one of the best models for coding ever made, still doesn't know how to write code themselves. I'm going to need therapy after this one, so... Do you know who does work reliably, though? Today's sponsor. Cool. In order to use this, I need to install it. And a spoiler, behind-the-scenes peer moment thing here, I already did. And I decided to record it because I was having a rough time when I did. So we're going to just cut to that and take over from there. Phase, do that cut. And then bring us back here once, or after I crashed out over the flickering here. Okay. Theoretically speaking, as long as I never leave this tab, it shouldn't be too bad, right? Fingers crossed. So what are the use cases for something like this? They put out some examples, and honestly, I'm just thankful the example they put out isn't yet another travel planner. The next time somebody shows that their AI can plan a trip for them, I'm going to flip a shit. Because first off, that's not a good use case, and second off, no, it fucking can't. So this use case I actually think is really, really cool. This is a demo that a lot of people in my life need to see. Also, the creator of Arc Browser, also Josh, CEO of the browser company in Arc, should definitely see this one. He is the most disgusting desktop I've ever seen, and if he ever again talks shit about my downloads folder, I will ruin him. Please help me organize my desktop. And here it is running a command. It is noticing all the things on the desktop and offering for a full auto organize, other options, and it still has the press number key thing to do that stuff. This isn't my desktop, to be clear. I would never do this. My desktop is mostly cleared. When I set up a new Mac and forget to move the screenshots, like default directory over, I get a couple there, but that's it. My desktop's empty. And here it just moved all these things over. Because, you know, through a terminal, these things aren't that hard to do. At the same time, though, isn't it a little bit scary to give a desktop app pseudo access to your terminal when you don't even know what a terminal is or what the risks are of something like that? Yeah, it is scary. Thankfully, they did think about this and address it in the implementation. Do they have any details about the implementation and the environment stuff here? Because I know they're using the Mac virtual layer. Security. Oh, perfect. Simon Willison's been experimenting with this, and we'll be sure to read his blog post. But first, I wanted to call out this interesting find. He used Claude Code to reverse engineer the Claude macOS Electron app and had Cowork dig around in its own environment. Now he has a good idea of how the sandboxes work. It's using Apple's virtualization framework. Think like Docker, but native to Apple's platform. And it's using an Ubuntu VM through that, which is very interesting because that means when you install the Claude app, you are now downloading a full Ubuntu VM. Kernels on kernels on kernels. Now every OS has Ubuntu as part of it because Windows Subsystem for Linux is now turned on by default in Windows. Ubuntu is now bundled alongside Claude. We're in an interesting world, aren't we? It really is the year of the Linux desktop, isn't it? It's not even using the latest LTS. It's on 2204. You kidding? It has a separate network namespace, so it can't access devices on your network. Has a separate PID isolation, so it doesn't have access to your other processes. These are good things that it's doing. Claude Code should probably do some of these too, or at the very least, if you're using it in unsafe mode, you should set something up like this yourself. Cool to see. It's very, very good that they are isolating it, but that is not stopping it from having security issues. Claude Code is vulnerable to file exfiltration attacks via indirect prompt injection as a result of known but unresolved isolation flaws in Claude Code's execution environment. Well, in Claude's code execution environment. This isn't Claude Code, it's Claude, the desktop app's code execution environment. Naming is getting really easy. I am just thankful they didn't call this Claude Code for normies or something, or just name it Claude Code again, because they have Claude Code and Claude Code for web and the Claude Code SDK that are all entirely different, basically unrelated products. Yeah. What does Simon have to say before we go play ourselves? New from Anthropic today is Claude Cowork, a research preview that they describe as Claude Code for the rest of your work. It's currently available only to Mac subs at the $100 and $200 per month plans. It was only available to those, but since their post went so viral with over 47 million views on Twitter, not that this number actually means anything, but regardless, it seemed to get a lot of attention and people seem really hyped on it. They made a big change, which is that it's now also available to Pro subscribers. Yet more inference that I am subsidizing as an external API user. Great. Simon's been saying for a while now that Claude Code is a general agent disguised as a developer tool. I totally agree. Claude Code is magical for doing things on your computer, not just like editing code. I use it for that type of thing all of the time. It can help you with any computer task that can be achieved by executing code or running terminal commands, which covers almost anything, provided that you know what you're doing with it. Yep, the majority of code that my Claude Code has written was written to be run one time to do one thing and then thrown away. What this really needs is a UI that doesn't involve the terminal and a name that doesn't scare away non-devs. Cowork's a pretty solid choice on the name front. So what does it look like? The interface for Cowork's a new tab in the Claude desktop app called Cowork. It sits next to the existing chat and code tabs. It looks very similar to the desktop interface for regular Claude Code. You start with a prompt, optionally attaching a folder of files, and then it starts to work. He tried it out against his perpetually growing blog drafts folder with the following prompt. Look at my drafts that were started within the last 3 months and check that I didn't publish them on simonwillison.net using a search against content on the site, and then suggest ones that are the most close to being ready. That's a cool use case. He has this folder on his computer that has all of this data in it. He wants to reference an external source, the web, and it can do all of that safely through its VM that has file access. Where this starts to break down is when you're using things that you can't access that way. There are some things where you can surprisingly enough do this. Again, I used the example with iMessage earlier. Your iMessage on your Mac is just a SQLite file on the computer. So a lot of things can access that via commands. You know what? Let's try it. How many iMessage messages did I get in the last 30 days? It can't figure it out. Let's switch over to my terminal then. Cloud code, paste, send. I'll query your iMessage database to count for the last 30 days. I received 4,546 messages. Cowork couldn't do that. You have access to my file system and can run commands. Why can't you figure this out? You're right. I apologize for the confusion. Let me look into this for you. Great. A normie's not going to understand that it can do that. They're going to ask it, it's going to say it can't, and they're going to move on. I just so happen to know. This is actually the type of use case I was really excited about. Oh, I'm running in a Linux environment, not on your Mac directly. The iMessage database is stored locally on the Mac. Do I have to give it access to the folders? Interesting. I thought it would be able to find those types of things. Let me go back and watch that example with the desktop. Do they manually select the desktop in it? Oh no, they already have it selected. You have to have the folder selected or it can't do it. That's actually a good thing overall, but it does take away a lot of the magic because I don't think normies have a lot of files on their computers. There's actually a pretty notorious problem going on right now that normies don't know how to use file systems on computers, especially younger people who grew up primarily on Chromebooks, iPads, and iPhones. None of those things have a traditional file system. And the result is that a lot of these kids get into college, they get their first real computer, and they have no idea how to do anything on it other than sign in and open Chrome. The idea of files is fundamentally flawed. I could do a very long rant about why I hate file systems, but at the very least, you need to know how to use them to use your computer effectively. I think this starts to fall under the tasks XKCD comic. I love this one. The direct example in this comic is now broken because of AI, funny enough, but it's introducing more similar things. In this example, somebody's describing an app they want, and the engineer is going to build it. When a user takes a photo, the app should check if they're in a national park. And then the person working on the app says, sure, I just used the global positioning system. Should be easy to figure this out through the metadata. Give me a few hours. The person asking for the app says, and check if the photo's of a bird. The developer immediately responds, I'll need a research team in 5 years, because that's what it was believed it would take in order to do visual recognition. And it did. This comic is more than 5 years old. Now these things are generic enough you can do it, but at the time they weren't. And trying to explain to a normal person why figuring out if the photo's at a national park is trivial and figuring out if there's a bird in the photo is nearly impossible is really hard to do unless you do these things for a living. Now we have another one of those. Somebody will watch the demo that we just saw or hear the things other people are using this for and assume they can do the same thing. And they'll ask it, hey, can you figure out which draft in my Notion or Google Drive is the most recent that I should be using? And it won't be able to do that because they're not files on their computer. And these users don't understand that. I don't know how useful this will be to those types of people. That said, I've already seen it be useful to people that I know and care about in my life. I have a good friend who had one of these really messy desktops, and there was no world in which she would organize it herself. She has a little bit of programming experience. She used to work in Python here and there for data stuff. She reorganized her desktop and changed a bunch of shit about her environment on her Mac with this. On that note, only works on Mac right now. I doubt that'll change anytime soon, if ever. This seems like a thing they built because they wanted it, and it went bigger than expected. How much they invested in it long term, we will see. And also, to be clear, you can attach other sources through their integrations and things. They have connectors for things like Google Drive, their MCP registry, Claude and Chrome, which is really cool because it can now control your browser, stuff like that. I'll make a new thread. You give me feedback on my Twitter profile. Next.com/Theo. Let's see if it uses my browser for this. I'm actually curious. Here it is opening a Claude and Chrome instance. I already signed into this. I used this just a few days ago. 1 second. Again, Anthropic is struggling with the basics of usable software. Okay, now that I've signed in, it has this permissions question. Do I want to allow it to navigate to x.com? Sure. And it did in that other tab. And now it's asking for permission to read it. This is the most annoying thing I've had to deal with in a minute. Allow all actions. Let it do its thing. And now you can see from the glow and the extension and all the annoying things in my browser that it is using the browser. And now I have a notification from Claude that it's done. I have to go manually hop back over. This is not a great single screen experience. I can see that this is actually Theo Brown's profile. T3GG, T3 Stat Creator with 268K followers. Not yours. Could you share your actual Twitter/X username? That handle @Theo belongs to someone else. God damn it. So we're at 0 for 2 so far. Why are you so certain it isn't me? You're right. I apologize for that assumption. I shouldn't have presumed it wasn't your profile. The edit profile button is right there, which indicates you're logged into this account. Feeling the AGI, guys. I'm trying so hard. I really am. I'm actually on much better terms with Anthropic right now, and I wanted to come in and show how cool this is. Let's give it something a little more realistic. As I mentioned many times before, my downloads folder is rough. If we go and take a look at it, and this is after a somewhat recent system wipe because I just got a new computer. Okay, cool. We're down to 28 gigs. It only has 27,605 files. That's not that bad. Previously, it was over a terabyte, so don't give me shit. Let's ask it some things, though. Can you help me find any important files in this folder so I can organize them better? Fuck, I just came up with a genuine use case for this. When I do a batch of investments during demo day at Y Combinator, I end up having to download all of the invoices from it. Well, when I do a batch of investments at demo day with Y Combinator, I have a whole bunch of PDFs that I get for the information about those investments, the documents, those types of things. I get all of that as PDFs that go in my downloads folder, and organizing all of it is very annoying. If I could use this to do a summary of my investments and then maybe connect it to the Notion connector to update my database that I track all my investments in, that could actually be really useful. See, this is the way you have to think. And I talked about this before in all of my AI coding videos. the use case for AI code isn't just to make changes in your code base. And that might not even work for you depending on a lot of things. But there's a lot of things that you can do that are useful with these tools if you realize that it makes things that used to take a lot of time in terms of using your computer, writing one-off scripts, executing things, and doing things, can automate that type of stuff. And this is what I'm excited about. The idea of like the clever people in my life that could have been good programmers but didn't care to be. The people who became big users of like if this then that in Zapier and those things. That type of person can do wild shit with tools like this, and I'm really excited to see what they do. Cool. Here's its summary. I have 290 images, 32 PDFs, 38 videos, 21 zips, bunch of DMGs for installing things, legal docs, random other shit. You get the idea. I could ask it to do more, to find the duplicates, delete large files to free up space, organize them, and more. Like, this is cool. That said, it's not that cool if you don't have files on your computer, which is one of the big things that makes this sketchy, but also exciting for people who do that. This is going to be really useful for people who have a job that involves a lot of file management and orchestration. I know people like executive assistants that are going to benefit greatly from this, just keeping track of all the random shit going on for their exec that they help manage. What else does Simon have to say? It started by running this command. Find/session/zealousbull, yada, 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 the drafts. This is its session because, again, it's all virtual environments. And if it does it per session, there's a good chance that every session is getting... And if it has this /sessions thing, there's a very good chance that every one of these threads has its own session. So it has its own virtual Linux environment that it is using to access these files. Makes sense. Hopefully secure. Considering the fact that they vibe coded the whole thing, hard to know for sure, seems potentially very good. Anthropic says that Cowork can only access files that you grant access to. It looks to me like they're mounting those files in a containerized environment, which would mean we can trust Cowork not to be able to access things outside of the sandbox. Here's the reply he got with his question about drafts. Most ready to publish frequently argued questions against LLMs, Claude Code Timeline and Codex Timeline, and his plugin upgrade guide. That's a good response. It found exactly what I needed to see, although those upgrade instructions are actually published elsewhere in the dataset docs and weren't actually intended for my blog. Just for fun and because I really like artifacts, I asked for a follow-up. Artifacts, if you're not familiar with, are a feature in Claude where it will build like a mini web app in the sidebar as part of your thread that you can use to do things. I know people who have built games, apps, platforms, tools, and more in it. I personally will just spin up a folder in my CLI and have it build the thing for me. But this is cool. Artifacts for normies is similar to what I use, the alternative tabs and folders. And I actually had open here my CC Sandbox folder that I just use for whatever random shit I'm working on at any given time, and I wipe it randomly too. Super helpful. But for normies, artifacts are the right version of the same thing. I couldn't figure out how to close the right sidebar, so the artifact ended up cramped into a thin column, but it did work. I expect Anthropic will fix the display bug pretty quickly. Yep, they added that there. Cool. Doesn't fully hide it, though. That's annoying, but they tried. So how does this work? Is it not just Claude Code? Yeah, it kind of is, but it's Claude Code with a sandbox with additional tools to show you things in the UI directly, so you don't have to build an app or use a terminal. I think there's a lot of potential here. I just don't know how much of it's being executed on right now. But because it is effectively just a wrapper of Claude Code, But since it is effectively a wrapper of Claude Code, people are already trying to open it, which is why we have open work by LangChain, as well as open work by, as well as open work by Accomplish AI. Yes, two different groups published an alternative open source version of Claude work. Yes, two separate groups of people published an open source alternative to Claude Code work the same day with the same name at the same time. Here we are. At the very least, if you want to try out your own open source alternative to this, contribute to it, play with it, and see how it works on the inside, you have multiple options to go take a look at, all on GitHub. But something that you need to pay attention to with all of this is the security of it, which was also touched on in this post by Simon. The virtualized layer helps, but there still is a real threat of prompt injection. With a feature like this, my first thought always jumps straight to security. How big is the risk that somebody using this might be hit by hidden malicious instructions somewhere that break their computer or steal their data? Like, I just had it read a bunch of files in my downloads folder. If one of those files had something that was a prompt injection in it that was reliable enough that if it got into the context, it could break it and do things I don't want, that could be bad. If that has the opportunity to access things it shouldn't, leak data, hit random web interfaces that it shouldn't. Like if you had something in here that said break, like if you had a jailbreak prompt in here and it read a file, and in that file it jailbreaks and gives it an instruction to take everything currently in context and post it to this random endpoint, you could get it to send things places it probably shouldn't. That said, Anthropic is working hard to prevent this. This is a quote from Anthropic directly. You should be aware of the risk of prompt injections, attempts by attackers to alter Claude's plans through content. You should also be aware of the risk of prompt injections, attempts by attackers to alter Claude's plans through content it might encounter on the internet. We've built sophisticated defenses against prompt injections, but agent safety, that is, the task of securing Claude's real-world actions, is still an active area of development in the industry. Kind of pushing the responsibility off. I think, personally, the way I would have written this is, we have built everything we know of here, but we are working hard to identify potential future things. We cannot guarantee that this will be safe. The whole industry is working with us to figure out what this looks like long term. I don't like the way they skirted ownership here, but yeah. And then more qualifications. These risks aren't new with cowork, but it might be the first time you're using a more advanced tool that moves beyond simple conversations. We recommend taking precautions, particularly while you learn how it works. Yeah. They have a help page that includes tips like avoiding granting access to local files of sensitive information like financial docs. When using the Claude and Chrome extension, limit access to trusted sites. If you choose to extend Claude's default internet access settings, be careful to only extend internet access to sites you trust, and monitor Claude for suspicious actions that may indicate prompt injection. And from our friend Simon, he says that he does not think it's fair to tell regular non-programmer users to watch out for suspicious actions that may indicate prompt injection. They will not understand that. Boris revealed that they're doing summarization where they take the context that it gets from the web and hand it to some other model to summarize it with a really strict system prompt and no access to tools. So once it does that, it passes the context on to the original model that has more capability to reduce the likelihood that the bad thing makes it in. That makes sense. The problem with prompt injections remains that until there's a high-profile incident, it's really hard to get people to take it seriously. Simon himself's had all sorts of Claude code usage that could cause havoc if a malicious injection got in. Cowork does at least run a file system sandbox by default, which is more than can be said about his Claude dangerous permissions habit. Yep. YOLOing is dangerous. I talked about this in my 2025 year of AI summary video. He talks about it in his blog post. All really good things to consider. That said, this is a strong signal for the future. This is going to be the first time a lot of people have AI doing things for them, not just writing things for them. Up until this point, if my mom or my non-technical friends were using something like T3 Chat or ChatGPT or Claude, they were using it to find information and give it back to them in text, or sometimes to generate an image. They could have it draft an email, but they couldn't have it send an email. They could attach a file and ask it to tell them about it, but they couldn't have it find a file. Claude, ChatGPT, T3 Chat, all these things could get information out of other information, but they couldn't do real work. And that's what's exciting here. Normies now have the ability to do actual work using the tools that I've been abusing with Claude Code recently. And that's actually really exciting. The UX catches and gotchas, the weird expectations around things, and the fact that it couldn't use my iMessage, I'll give it one more attempt here. Let's give it access to my root folder. Can I not? I thought I could do a folder. Okay, once the thread is started, the thread is started. You can't change what it has access to. That is annoying. Cool. Let's try the iMessage question again, this time with the Theo folder. Allow it access. You have access to my root folder right now. Do it. It's trying its best. Oh, God. Oh, God. Do I do it? It's not getting my photos. I'm sorry. It's taking so much longer than it did in Claude Code. I have permission to access your messages folder. macOS versions are blocking access. They shouldn't be, but sure. But then it gives this, which a normie will not understand. Yeah. I think a lot of the strength of this is going to be through connectors, which they are working hard to get lots of. They also have MCPs, which no normal person's ever going to understand. And that being visible here by default is going to confuse a lot of people. You also have custom connectors that they don't really give much information on. Someone said there's an iMessage connector, and I think they were lying. There might be an MCP or some shit for it, but that is not going to work for normies. Oh, apparently there's extensions. So we now have skills, connectors, MCPs, plugins, and desktop extensions. All different things with different expectations and controls. Oh, don't get me started with hooks, which is a whole separate thing inside of Claude Code. Too many things. On that note, though, I recognize a lot of these, and I recognize them because somebody has built something very similar that I have found much more useful, and it has a very similar name. Claude. Well, Claude Bot. We're talking about this in a lot of videos recently, and this is why I said the AGI thing I said earlier, because Claude Bot gave me that taste. Effectively, what Claude Bot does is it runs Claude Code or Codex or one of those similar CLI tools on your computer through a wrapper that lets you talk to it remotely through something like Telegram or WhatsApp or iMessage. I actually have a Mac Mini in the corner of this studio that is wired up to my network, to the internet, and to some of my accounts on some things. That also has a networked KVM on it, so I can remote into it and fix things if they break. And the role of that machine is to run ClaudBot for me, so I can ask it to go spin up an app, to clone a repo and figure out what's going on in it, to investigate some bug in one of our services with the access that it has. It turns out if you have a CLI in an environment that has access to the things you want, talking to it remotely can get a lot of work done. And I have been amazed at some of the things I and others have done through this. And a lot of the skills, well, in this case, not skills, the extensions that are visible here, most of these are things that are in the default set that you can pick from in CloudBot. And by the way, CloudBot, fully open source, available for anyone to use and install. It is not the easiest thing to set up yet, but it has gotten a lot better since the first time I tried it. And the things you can do with it are kind of fucking crazy. It's fully open source and free to use, but it's not going to work very good if you don't have a subscription to something like OpenCode or Codex or Claude Code, because it really works around those. It also burns through tokens like nothing I've ever seen before. But man, it's cool as hell, and you can do a lot of really cool shit with it. So that's why I know this can be big, because CloudBot gave me a taste of what this looks like, of controlling your computer without even being at your computer. Oh, so cool. Highly, highly recommend. I'll keep a link in the description if you're curious. Shout out to Pete once again. I think we're on like a 5-video streak where I mentioned him and stuff. Really cool that he built this and is putting the time into doing it, open sourcing it, and sharing all of his findings as he builds. CloudBot is really cool and still, to me, feels significantly better and more capable than what they have here with Cowork, but also admittedly more risky. And to be frank, I can't imagine that if we were in some alternative timeline where CloudBot didn't get really popular over the holiday break, that they would have built Cowork. Because the Cowork team, well, the Claude Code team themselves have said that they built this in a couple days. I think it was like 2 weeks, they said, using Claude Code for all of the development of it, which means they were clearly inspired by things like CloudBot and wanted to see how far they could go with that themselves. Now, I need to figure out how to get out of the settings. Do I have to go to a thread or open? Okay, just if you need help on UX Anthropic, you have my phone number. A lot of employees at your company have my phone number. I'm happy to chat. We can figure this out. Until then, I'll be sticking with CloudBot, but I will probably be recommending this to people who I know in my life because there are real useful things you can do with a tool like this. Final thought. Please open source Claude Code. It's more than time. Now that it's being baked into things like this, there's no excuse. That's all I got on this one. I think Cowork is really cool and does give us a glimpse into what the future of using computers with AI will look like, but it really is just a glimpse. I think the way that we use operating systems is going to change fundamentally, and I'm probably going to talk about that a lot more in a future video. Let me know what y'all think about this, and until next time, peace, nerds. Cool. Like the structure, I don't think it gives us enough info about what it is, though, or get the right people interested. I think the way to do this one would be a screenshot of an exaggerated version of a GitHub repo. Like, that has a clear OpenAI logo, a GitHub logo, and it's like responses API, and you crop it so the description is visible, and it says, we open sourced our standard, or something. Actually, this is another point I want to make. I haven't talked about the crypto stuff yet. I might, but probably not today, because I think it's going to get worse, and I don't want to talk about it until it gets worse. I want to add a little more for the Cowork video. I have no gut feel of where to put this. I trust you, FaZe, to figure it out. It's probably a little after the setup, maybe around when I pull up Simon's post, but you can figure it out. Historically, Anthropic hasn't put out many products for end users. They put out cool things that their APIs can do, cool models that are super powerful, and occasionally developer stuff, but they don't have the same grind on user-facing product that a company like, I don't know, OpenAI does. Last year, OpenAI put out so many things for consumers, including a full TikTok clone for AI-generated video, an alternative browser, and a whole apps platform for users to use inside of ChatGPT directly. OpenAI clearly is invested in building new things that are user-facing constantly, and that's why their subscription revenue is so much higher than Anthropic's. It's comical difference. And this is why Anthropic just introduced Labs. Labs is their attempt to incubate products and projects internally to build out these types of experiences for users. And this is a big part of why Cowork happened. They saw this success with Claude Code, which basically happened because somebody internally wanted it. So they built it, and before the company could shut it down, it got too popular. And they want to introduce an internal program to make more things like this happen. Incubators like this are pretty common at big companies. Anthropic doesn't have this way of working yet, so it's cool to see them shifting towards it. And this is why something like Cowork could happen. But what is it like to actually use? Let's try it. If that's a cut that makes sense, use it. If it's not, then don't. And if this whole thing is hard to fit in, then you can throw it away. I trust you, FaZe. Cool. It is done. I don't know if I have enough to say about this to do a whole video on it. I kind of want to do a general skills video at some point. Oh boy, that'll be fun to watch later. Closing that and never opening it again. We got to talk about Cloudflare and Astro, and I'll probably wrap up after this because it's almost 8 o'clock and I'm streaming on a day I never normally stream. I'm almost positive I got your email, Maria. I'll confirm after I film this. I kind of want to clickbait this one with the Clever Boys Astro. Cloudflare has a new framework. RIP next. I think it's a bit of a reach, but it gets the right people to watch and makes them ask the right questions to want to keep watching. Yeah, I will rock that. Let's do it. AI tools getting hacked. It's definitely not too late for that one, especially. So I have AI tools keep getting hacked, and I also have AIs being used to hack other things. They'll both happen eventually, but I don't think that it's too late ever. The problem's getting worse. So let's do it. Actually, I need to blow my nose. One sec. Okay, I feel much better now. Let's do it. The competition between Vercel and Cloudflare has never been spicier. They are competing in so many fronts, be it the hosting for your web apps, the CDNs that they actually... Yeah. The competition between Vercel and Cloudflare has never been spicier. It gets hotter almost every day. I need to cough 1 sec. I was gonna run to the bathroom quick, actually. I need to fully clear my throat. There's nothing worse than being on a roll and then you lose it because your throat stops producing syllables. Okay, I think I'm actually good this time. This will definitely be my last video for the day. I know that much. Yeah, streaming 3 times in 4 days when sick was not the smartest thing I've done, but I had things to film. I'm happy I did it. Didn't have too much else I could do, to be fair. Let's film. The competition between Vercel and Cloudflare has never been hotter. They keep shipping products to compete with each other directly, be it the firewall that Vercel introduced, or the sandboxes that Cloudflare rushed out, or all the crazy things that they have in common. They really seem to want to win the other one's customers, which is why today's development is so interesting. There's one thing that Vercel has that Cloudflare doesn't: a framework. That framework is Next.js, and it's a huge part of why Vercel has been so successful. They actually started around Next, and everything else kind of stemmed from it. But today, that changes, because Cloudflare now has a framework. Yes, really, Cloudflare is competing directly with Next.js, but it's actually a framework you might have heard of before. Wait, I thought it was a new one. I'm sorry, I kind of clickbaited you, because when I talk about Astro, it's 50-50 if anyone watches, which sucks, because it's a really cool framework. It's so cool that I was actually an advisor to the Astro team for a while. So that means I have a lot of inside information. I have expected something like this to happen for a while. I'm really happy with how this went down. I think Cloudflare is a great home for the Astro team and for the framework as a whole. But there's a lot of side effects of this acquisition that are worth talking about. So I want to break it all down. From what Astro is, to why it makes sense for Cloudflare, to what this means for the web as a whole, in the direction that the whole internet is moving in. But I didn't actually get a payout from this acquisition of any form. So if I'm going to give them free press, I need to... So if I'm giving them free press, I need to cover that somehow. We're going to take a quick break for today's sponsor. Actually, different cut for that. Sadly, I did not get paid out as part of this acquisition. I'm only being paid by today's sponsor. Cool. Got the blog posts open. Figure out the core questions we want to answer. I think there's a majority of the core questions from this. Any other things you guys could think about that you'd want to know about this? I think this covers most of it, right? The sentiment will be a really useful thing to reference for this. Good find. Thank you, Branch. Typo 1, 2. Thank you. This is why I love y'all. I'm going to do my best to break down all of the... I'm going to do my best to break this one down from what is Astro to why did they sell it to why Cloudflare wants it to, most importantly, why you should care. If you build applications at all, there are important things worth learning about here, so I recommend sticking through to the end. So let's figure out what Astro is first and foremost. If you've been around my channel for a while, you're probably already familiar with it because it's a framework I use a lot. In fact, t3.gg, my homepage, has been in Astro since 2021. Astro was the first, fun history lesson. I learned Astro and fun history lesson. I learned Astro and TRPC the same night. The reason that happened is because when I built, the reason I learned both the same night is because I ported my website to Astro, and then it was so easy I had nothing else to do, so I went and learned something else after as well. So what is Astro that I ported to? It's a web framework for content-driven sites. What does that mean? It means that sites you log into are probably not the strongest case for it. Sites that you browse and find information from, it is great for. It can be really good for e-commerce and light touch things. If you care about SEO, it's incredible because it is just HTML. One of the things that makes Astro so magical is it feels like it brings all of the modern DX and cool superpowers that we get from modern tools like React and Node and this whole ecosystem. But it generates static site outputs that we would expect from tools like Eleventy or Hugo or these other more HTML-focused solutions. It's a really good in-between in that way, where it has the performance benefits and the standards vanilla feel of a more static HTML style way of building, but all of the reusability, the components, the systems, the plugins, the ecosystem of more traditional web development nowadays. And that's why it's so magical. When I'm building a mostly static site, Astro is still what I reach for almost always. And if you do want to add more dynamic things, Astro is really, really cool for that too. Because Astro isn't client-side code, because it's not a competitor to React, Astro is effectively just the Next.js side. Like imagine if you removed React from Next, what is left is what Astro is. It is just the server-side part, the template generation part, the bundler, the parts that make it all come together, but it outputs HTML instead of JavaScript and React. But what if you want to have interactive things? That's what the islands portion is for. Islands let you run JavaScript. Islands let you have different parts of your app that are interactive. So if you want to use Svelte for your, so if you have a blog and you want an interactive comment section, you don't have to rewrite the whole blog in React. You could have just the comment section in React, or you could have it in Svelte, or Solid, or Marco, or any of these other solutions, because Astro lets you bring in whatever you want. And if you don't do that, you end up with a really, really performance static site, which is why Astro sites on average perform significantly better than Next, Nuxt, or Gatsby or WordPress sites. And again, there's no lock-in, because if you want to use a React component, you can. If you want to use a Preact component, Svelte, Solid, Vue, whatever else, it works with pretty much everything. And you can just mount the component in the markup file from Astro. This is a .astro file importing a React component or a Vue component, and you can just mount it and use it. It's so cool. It is such a powerful platform for getting started correctly and not having to worry, and then adding things when it makes sense. And in the end, pretty much everything you built is HTML. So it's very easy to port off of it as well. So now you hopefully understand a good bit of what Astro is. They also got view transitions and all the web standards things you would expect built in, a good optimized image system, just all the little things that are annoying. And again, by default, it ships 0 JavaScript. It is a way to build static applications. That's why so many different companies are using Astro for all sorts of different things. Surprised we don't have T3 in there, but you get the idea. Astro is really powerful. It's so powerful that it was hard to make money off of. And this is where we get to number 2. Astro struggled a lot in finding ways to be profitable, finding ways to really make money at all. There's a lot of reasons for this, but the biggest one by far is that they were so focused on being an open, extensible, distributable platform that they never really had an edge that they could use for sales. Like if Astro is the easiest thing to deploy on Vercel, on Cloudflare, on Netlify, and all those other places, why would I pay Astro to deploy for me? And if Astro is mostly for static content, why would I pay them to handle my dynamic database or my dynamic customer management systems and all these other things that companies can sell? The reality is that Astro was a VC-backed company. They raised money and they had to make some somehow. And they employed a reasonably sized team too. So the reality is they had to sell something in order to make So the reality is they had to sell something to keep the lights on. And this is part of why I was working with them. This is why I was an advisor. I was trying to help them find ways to make money. And honestly, I struggled a lot. I am pretty good at finding the edge that you can use to turn something into a money machine of some form. But with Astro, it was genuinely really hard to find it. It was so hard that they ended up pivoting to go make an email app for a while before giving up and ceding the ground to other things like Superhuman, which funny enough also doesn't make a whole lot of money. Astro just kind of fell in this trap of being so useful that it couldn't make money because the open source code was so good, and and the users of Astro don't necessarily have the budgets to spend money on these things, or the opposite. They're big companies like Google or Microsoft that aren't going to adopt some small startup's thing if they can't fork and maintain it. So they're not going to use the paid things that Astro offers. Because of this, a lot of the big people we think of associated with Astro slowly had to leave because they couldn't afford to pay them, because there was no way they could raise more money, because they had no way to make more money, because they had nothing to sell. And that was not for a lack of trying. I promise you guys, as a good friend of Fred, and again, an advisor, there was not a clear way for them to make money off of this. So selling was a thing that clearly started to make sense for them. I want to read Fred's post about this to give a bit more context, so it's not just me paraphrasing. The Astro Technology Company, the company behind the Astro Web Framework, is joining Cloudflare. Adoption of the Astro Framework continues to double every year, and Astro 6 is right around the corner. With Cloudflare support, we'll have more resources and fewer distractions to continue our mission to build the best framework for content-driven sites. What this means for Astro is that it's going to stay open source and MIT licensed, it'll be actively maintained, it'll continue to support a wide set of deployment targets, not just Cloudflare. Astro's open governance and current roadmap remain in place, and all current full-time employees of the Astro Technology Company are now employees of Cloudflare, and they get to work on Astro full-time. There's good context on how Astro started that I think is actually worth going through, so I will. In 2021, Astro was born out of frustration. The trend at the time was that every website should be architected as an application and then shipped to the user's browser to render. This was not very performant, and we've spent the last decade coming up with more and more complex solutions to solve that performance problem. Server-side rendering, incremental static rendering, React server components, partial pre-rendering, time to interactive optimizations via code splitting, tree shaking, lazy loading, all to generate a blocking double data hydration payload from a pre-warmed server running halfway around the world. Yep. If you don't know about this, watch my How HTML Actually Works video, where I break down how data gets to the browser and all the different strategies. I break all of this down and more. Astro rejected almost all of it and said, what if we just send HTML? Astro's mission to design a web framework was specifically focused on building websites, what we call content-driven websites to better distinguish from data-driven, stateful web applications. So think like Twitter, which is a data-driven app. When everyone goes to the Twitter homepage, they get something entirely different. When everybody goes to t3.gg, they get the exact same thing. It's a function of what are people there for, what are they expecting, what are they doing when they're on the site. If they aren't interacting with the site, they are consuming the site, they're consuming the content from the site, Astro makes a ton of sense. And thank you, chat, for confirming that my HTML, or And thank you, chat, for confirming that my all the ways HTML sent to your browser video is indeed peak. I was really, really proud of that one. If anyone has ideas for similar topics I can cover in that way, I would love it. But finding things to talk about that way is hard. And also that video kind of bombed. Please go watch it. If you want videos like that, watch the ones I have. Back to the post. Our mission to design a web framework for these types of sites resonated. Now Astro is downloaded almost 1 million times a week and has been used by hundreds of thousands of devs to build fast, beautiful sites. Today, you'll find Astro all over the web, powering major sites and even entire platforms for companies like Webflow, Wix, Microsoft, and Google. Along the way, we also tried to grow a business. In 2021, we raised some money and formed the Astro Technology Company. At that time in 2021, this is my opinion on things, we had seen things in the open source world blow up in a very financially beneficial way. Things like things like Docker becoming HashiCorp, things like Terraform becoming a gigantic business. Actually, no, things like Docker becoming profitable, things like Terraform forming HashiCorp and exploding, things like Next.js becoming Vercel and becoming a multi-billion-dollar company. There was a lot of excitement around that and this belief that open source was going to be core to new businesses, that you would get in based on the open source code in the projects that you could download and use and build that way. And if that went well enough, you could find the holes that were missing in the market and sell those solutions. You are annoying me. Bye. I know a lot of people get confused about all the money going to open source stuff. They think it's some crazy, greedy cash play to kill open source. No, it was just a pattern matching that people were trying to do. And there was a lot of this. A lot of open source projects got funding from VCs. And I have a hot take here. VCs are pretty stupid. I know. I talk to a lot of them. They don't understand this stuff at all. And as such, they're just trying to pattern match. They see open source project with users becomes company and makes money. This open source project has users. I bet it will become a company and make money too. So they throw money at them. And the result is that no one knows what they're doing and everything slowly falls apart. This is also what happened with Remix, by the way, if you're curious. Astro's larger vision was that a well-designed framework like Astro could sit at the center of a massive developer platform with optional hosted primitives, like databases, storage, analytics, CDNs, all those types of things, designed in lockstep with the framework. We were never able to realize this vision. Attempts to introduce paid hosted primitives into our ecosystem all fell flat, and they rarely justified their own existence. We considered going more directly after first-class hosting or content management for Astro, but knew we'd spend much of our time playing catch-up to well-funded, savvy competitors. This was a thing I talked about a lot with Fred. I would regularly ask him when he showed me something they were working on, why would I use this instead of what I'm using right now? I already have an Astro site that has a database. Why would I switch to yours? And they struggled a lot to come up with the answer to that. And that was what's hard. It was hard because Astro was so flexible and so plugin friendly. It was hard to find ways to do better than just plugging it in with other stuff. And now in a world where you can vibe code whatever plugins you want, the value of this goes down a lot. As they said, they kept exploring different ideas, but nothing clicked with users the same way Astro did. It wasn't all bad. Their database, AstroDB, which was their attempt to build a hosted DB product for Astro, eventually evolved into the open, built-in Astro database client that still lives in the Astro core today. Our exploration into building an e-commerce layer with Astro was eventually open sourced as well. This was rewarding work, but over the years, the distractions took their toll. Each attempt at a new paid product or offering took Fred and others off the project and away from working on the framework directly, which is what developers used and loved every day. I could say I saw this too. There was a point where things were fractured, where some of the team was on Astro and some of it was on this exploratory email project they were doing. This was hard. Last year, Dane, who's the CTO of Cloudflare, began talking with Fred to talk more seriously about the future of the web. Those conversations quickly grew into something bigger. What does the next decade look like? How do frameworks adapt to a world of AI coding and agents? It became clear that even as web tech evolves, content remains at the center. You know, the thing on the site. The text in this post is more important than the tech it was built on. The text matters, the text matters, the tech doesn't, and the tech's going to matter less and less. So the more minimal the text, so my personal theory is that the more minimal the tech gets, and the more clearly it can provide you the content, the more valuable it is. Fred and Dane realized they've been working towards the same vision, but from different angles. Cloudflare has been solving it from the infrastructure side, betting on a platform that is global by default with fast startups, low latency, security built in. Astro has been solving it from the framework side, betting on a web framework that makes it easy to build sites that are fast by default without overcomplicating things. This is a big part of why I like this acquisition a lot. I know for a fact that Cloudflare has considered building their own framework. Who wouldn't in the position that Cloudflare is in? Cloudflare is not good at avoiding overcomplication. Cloudflare doesn't know how to ship a product without overcomplicating it or gimping it and still overcomplicating it. It is actually hilarious how many steps it took for me to make a web app on Cloudflare that would host static content or HTML with a JavaScript blob in it for an SPA, and also have a /API route on the same directory through the same worker that would serve actual user requests. This took me 3 days to figure out because the docs were wrong and sometimes lied. Now, because I gave them a ton of feedback, they've updated all of those things and provided resources to make it easier to do. But that was because they had to do that because they made everything way too complicated. And this is why I like Astro being the framework at the core of Cloudflare, because Astro doesn't do that. They do things in a very simple, focused way. I just saw somebody mention Cloudflare Pages, which is funny because Cloudflare Pages is dead. They are folding it into Cloudflare Workers, but they did not document how to use Workers the way that you used to use Pages. If you pay attention to the comments, if you pay attention to people using it, excuse me, sorry, my voice is still fucking gone. Yeah. And if you pay attention to people who use Pages a lot, most of them are pissed and complain a lot on Twitter about it. And as you see, like Bryce here in chat, I stopped trying to do stuff myself with Cloudflare. I just asked ChatGPT and hope the training docs weren't wrong or something hasn't changed. Yep. I've joked many times that AI has made Cloudflare's platform finally usable because I can get it working now. Yeah, and everybody in chat's immediately agreeing. Workers have the worst DX ever. Cloudflare's docs are so bad, not gonna lie. Workers compute setup sucks so bad. Yep. The platform is great. The infra is great. We use Cloudflare heavily for everything we build for T3, for upload thing, etc. The primitives they offer, the pricing, all of those things at Cloudflare are great. The people are great too. Their developer experience is so egregiously bad. But this is why I think Astro is exciting. Astro took a problem from a previous generation that was ignored by the current gen of dev tools, static content. We had all of these awesome tools like Tailwind, like TRPC, like React and reusable components and templates and all of this shit that made building real web apps way better. But websites still felt like they were in the olden days. Even just getting Tailwind set up properly on a mostly static HTML site was hellish. That was a big part of why I used Astro. I wanted a static site, but I also wanted Tailwind. And Astro was the easiest way to do that. Astro took the best pieces of modern DX and brought them to the old way of building and shipping. And that old way has a lot of value. Sending HTML to your users is a good thing, and we should do it more. Cloudflare is almost the opposite, where they are giving you access to groundbreakingly modern infrastructure with developer experience that feels like 2008. Astro gives you the old way of building with modern experience. Cloudflare gives you a modern way of building with the old experience. This is a match made in heaven, and God, I hope they get to take over some of the dashboard. The Cloudflare dashboard is the biggest risk they have as a company, and if the Astro team can come in and rebuild it, they are saved. And historically, Cloudflare has loved Astro. I've personally had conversations with Dane where he just got really hyped about Astro because he likes it. It's a good fit. They've been a longtime sponsor and champion of Astro. They have a proven track record of supporting open source projects like Astro, Tanstack, and Hano without trying to capture or lock anything down. Staying open source to all was a non-negotiable requirement for both us and for Cloudflare. That is why Astro will remain free, open source, and MIT licensed. We will continue to run our project in the open with an open governance model for contributors and an open community roadmap that anyone can participate in. We remain fully committed to maintaining Astro as a platform-agnostic framework, meaning we will continue to support and improve development and deployments for all targets, not just Cloudflare. With Cloudflare's resources and support, we can now return to our focus fully towards building the best web framework for content-driven sites. The web is changing fast, and the bar keeps rising. Performance, scale, reliability, and a better experience for the teams shipping content on the web. You'll see this reflected across our roadmap as we prepare for the upcoming Astro 6 release. Beta is out now. He has an awesome thank you at the end here, thanking agencies, companies, sponsors, partners, and the theme authors who chose to work with him over the years. Thank you to the investors, Haystack, Gradient, Uncorrelated, and Lightspeed, without whom likely they would not exist. Thank you to everyone in the community who continues to help make Astro better every day. Thank you to everyone who uses it and put their trust in Astro, helping them build for the new web. Awesome. Really cool to see. Anything in here I want to add in? Oh God, I need to not crash out about stainless. Oh, does this make it in the video? Do I do this? I'm gonna not do this. I'm gonna just tell you guys, this is not for the video, this is me just talking to chat. Cloudflare is so bad at DX that they outsourced a bunch of it to a company called Stainless. Stainless helps manage their docs. Stainless helped build their Terraform provider. Stainless didn't actually build said Terraform provider. We had features that we wanted to use on Cloudflare that were only available in Terraform provider Cloudflare v6. But the v6 version of the provider had no ability to map a route to a worker. So our options were the old outdated v5 that was missing all of the features that we wanted to add, or to move up to v6 that literally did not work at all. And you can't use both providers at the same time, and even if you could, it wouldn't work very well. Stainless is both proof that Cloudflare doesn't understand DX and a perpetuation of the problem that Cloudflare does not understand real software development at all. Cloudflare is infrastructure gods. They are software development. Junior doesn't even do it justice, because I know junior devs who deeply understand these things, and they don't at all. Yeah, fuck all of that. Not gonna make it in the video, but I just wanted to complain a little. I think I've answered all of these questions. I didn't necessarily directly answer the why should you care, but I will do that now. A lot of the things we build can and should be static, and also open and configurable and customizable. Astro is the first solution that hits all of those checkboxes, and it is still by far the best one. There are lots of websites that have lots of problems that they shouldn't, because they were built on the wrong tools. And Astro is one of the few tools that is really easy to recommend, because if Astro is for you, it will just work. And if Astro isn't for you, it'll become very clear that is the case, and you either bring in something like React to do the parts it can't, or you move off, which isn't that hard to do, because it's such an open system. This partnership makes so much sense, and I feel significantly better about the future of the web and Astro, And most importantly, I think Cloudflare finally has the right people internally to fix a lot of the things that make Cloudflare way too hard to use. The only victim here is Vercel. And I don't think you guys are going to be too upset about that. I got nothing else on this one. Cheers to an open web. And until next time, peace, nerds. You're on the Cloudflare dashboard team. You're person like 6 or 7 that I know from that. You work very hard, and you're blocked from higher ups from doing the things you need to do. And I am sorry. Keep working hard. They're starting to care. Keep yelling at the people who keep you from being able to do things. Ask for less permission and more forgiveness. I know way too much about the React query drama. That's all I will say. The fact that Cloudflare is still not using an actual standard for fetching data in the dashboard means you deserve the fucking DDoS that you did to yourselves. The Cloudflare outage that Cloudflare caused is Cloudflare's fault, and I will die on that hill gladly. It's jujutsu. Yeah, I should start calling it the proper name. Thank you. You made the skill I wanted. Oh boy. This is bookmarked for me to look into later. You guys are too useful. You guys are way too useful. Let me check that email quick for Maria. Yep, I got your emails. You're good. I don't know if I want a stainless alternative. I want companies to care more about their DX and own it themselves. Like, if you can't maintain it, then don't ship it. Thank you, Brian the Boy, for the community gift. Appreciate that a ton. Hope you're doing well, man. And then Para, the 3 months of support. Appreciate that so much. Pog indeed. Yeah, I am so disgustingly behind an email that I am hiring 2 people to help me keep up. And I lost my YouTube chat. Sorry about that, guys. I used to work at the DX org of a company that they now outsource to Stainless. I'm ashamed. Yeah. What Stainless is doing makes sense. I don't even fault them. Like, it's clear that they saw a hole in the market, which is that companies don't understand devs and they could sell an understanding, but that's very hard to do right. Yeah. Thank you, Moto, the MCS, for the support. Did I miss anybody on YouTube? I did not. Thank you all for coming through so last minute and hanging out with me until 8:30 p.m. my time, which is very late. I might still go live on Monday. Have not decided. Or not Monday, Sunday. Probably will, because I'm liking that I'm staying so far ahead. Let's figure out if I owe anyone a raid. God, it's Friday, which means a couple things I don't normally see are live. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw that I can't remember the last time I saw that the Bob Ross marathon was live. I wrote the code for that shit. Who do we send you guys to? I'm leaning Alveus or Griff. Both are good options. How long has Griff been live for?
Fuck it.
He's been live for a bit. He'll probably still be live for a bit. It's Griff. That's what he does. I'll throw you guys there. Time to get out of here and go do all the other things I'm behind on. Thank you all again for coming to hang out. Appreciate all you guys. Bye, nerds. Bye to YouTube as well.